Part 26. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 251. There were a lot of people standing and sitting around, whispering from time to time. Everyone's smiles were very relaxed, and the younger they were, the more sarcastic they were, waiting to see a joke. Lei Jun stood not far away, next to a few young people about his age. To be honest, I thought I was going to participate in such a high-end private party. Before I came, I thought it was very high-end. I didn't expect there are people of this kind. There are a lot of liars now, and there are liars everywhere. Don't you realize that everyone is taking it as a joke? Is this the one that Jiao Anfan scolded? Yes, it's him. Speaking from the heart, I think Mr. Jiao's scolding him is dirtying his identity. That's right, a good returnee boss is mixed with this kind of muddy legs. Lei Jun frowned a little when he heard the muttering in his ear, and said, Mr. Lu is still somewhat level. There were laughter all around, and the footsteps quietly moved away from him. Lu Feng took the microphone and looked around, facing the various expressions from all sides. He just smiled. It is normal to be despised in such a place. Maybe some people don't know me, so let me introduce myself briefly. My name is Lu Feng, the founder of GMA Foods, and the founder of GFeng Electronic Technology. I know that all the people present are rich and big in the industry. I don't want a big guy, let alone a rich man. I still owe a lot of money to the bank, my education is low, I can't compare with everyone here, and I don't understand electronics. There was a burst of laughter at the scene, which is a typical layman instructing a professional. But I know a little bit about the market and banks. Let me tell you one thing. I read the news recently that the systems of food stamps and cloth stamps have been abolished in most parts of the country. More detailed investment promotion. Lu Feng took a deep breath and said, maybe some bosses or returnees think that as a boss, I don't focus on the industry, but always focus on policies and what the bank does. To be honest, I've gone from poverty to nothing, and it all depends on policies and banks. An industry with a bad environment can never be good. Last year's GDP growth rate came out. Who saw it? No one in the room spoke. Mr. Lu raised his head and said, 3.9%. Mr. Lu pays more attention to these. I know from some gossip that with the comprehensive removal of food stamps and cloth stamps, the bank will release a lot of water, and there will be a lot of money pouring out, because there is no money in the market. Inflation is going to be high this year, and I suggest you buy something if you have money. From the planned economy lane, this year will completely enter the market economy. I can assert that the township and village enterprises will have explosive growth in the next 10 years. The township and village enterprises will drive a large number of laborers, and at the same time, the wages of employees will increase rapidly. We must pay attention to one point: people have money and stable jobs, which will increase their spending power. Little Lu, let me interrupt, why don't you talk about the TV? Mr. Ho sat there and said with his legs crossed, what are you talking about here? Work report? What about the general environment? Ha 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 ha. The audience burst into laughter, but some people have already begun to ponder the perspective provided by Lu Feng. There is no shortage of smart people in this world, not to mention the presence of smart people. Mr. Ho, don't worry, you sit with me and stand and listen to me slowly. Lu Feng turned his head and said, 10 years ahead, a TV is a luxury, and the cheapest TV is a factory. The 2-year income of employees has dropped a lot in just a few years, and with the increase in wages, the number of people who buy large-scale color TVs will increase. At the same time, I recently read a birth report. There was a population peak in the 1970s. Now this group of people is 20 years old. When they reach the age of marriage, you may not know that the conditions for marriage in rural areas are not at all. What's going on 3 times? Some returnee friends don't quite understand this. 3 turns and 1 ring refers to the 4 major items of marriage, namely, sewing machines, bicycles, and watches. As for the 1 ring, it's a radio. Now it's very difficult for people in the village to rely on these to get their wives. Now the village has big color TVs and motorcycles, and they have to be 125. Some places are 3 gold, some are hardware, and there is a wedding car. The cheaper one is Santana, the more expensive one is the Crown. It is impossible to marry a wife for free. Maybe it was because of talking about the village. In such a place, it was a little rustic, and there was a burst of laughter at the scene. The big environment, the big background has been said. Let's talk about TVs. Why do I firmly believe that TVs are the next market explosion? Because I believe in my mother-in-law, Lu Feng said bitterly to everyone present. You just need to remember this, what your mother-in-law wants is the next industry outlet. Ha 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 ha. Everyone present laughed and clapped. It felt like listening to a talk show, and Lu Feng told them the wealth code so seriously, but none of the people present seemed to realize it. The wave of marriage will last for many years, and black and white TVs are about to be phased out, but now there is a very embarrassing problem in the market. TVs are too expensive. I went to the provincial capital for a meeting a few years ago and shopped around home appliances. In the market, a 27-inch color TV made in China costs 4,500, and I went home after the meeting and walked around the city. The same brand, the same size, the price has risen to 4,800. Then I went back to the town for a look at the New Year's Eve. It was sold by one family, not the same brand, but the same size. The price reached 5,002. The terminal price in the market was extremely unstable, the transportation fee was extremely expensive, and the expressway was blocked, let alone asphalt. Malu, when it rains, you can't find your way. Maybe those present are all elites. Haven't been to villages or towns. Have you ever seen people carrying carts, or have you seen all over the world looking for mules and donkeys to pull carts out? Lu Feng paused and looked at the people present and said, the rural market has great potential, but it is very difficult to enter. Transportation is a big problem, but this is not an excuse. Business needs to be done. I've been here for a day, and I've heard someone's name not once or twice. I can't speak to me in the south. When I go back to rectify GMA food, I will spend the new year by the way and curse people everywhere. To be honest, that day his grandfather there, if I hadn't given him some face, I would have scolded him for taking it away on a stretcher that day. Lu Feng's face became gloomy. What high-end? What do you do with a broken TV? Everyone at the scene started to get restless. Obviously, some people had accepted Lu Feng's idea, while others felt that Lu Feng was insulting them. I can tell everyone clearly now that what we want to do is low prices, and what we do is price butchers. Here I want to declare war on TVs across the country, not only on fan high-end TVs, but also all state-owned enterprises. Now I officially inform you that the time for the slaughter has come. As soon as the words fell, someone on the scene was already scolding, but more people were more shocked when they heard this remark, and had a more accurate understanding of the evaluation of science and technology daily. Industry disruptors, here we come. Lu Feng put down the microphone, showed a smile at the people present, and said, some humble opinions, I hope you don't pick on it. Zhu Lidong's eyes were very round, his face was full of shock, and he involuntarily applauded, and the others slapped it sparsely. Lu Feng has noticed Zhu Lidong's expression, and secretly thinks that the first step should be steady, looking at President Lu and sighing in his heart, don't blame me. If you want to blame it, what are you doing with the general manager when you go out? As expected of Mr. Lu, he has a thorough analysis of the current business environment, from the general environment to the market environment, plus the product packaging and brand positioning you mentioned at the Science and Technology Conference. It seems that you already have an overall framework in your heart. Although Mr. Ho was reluctant to admit it, he had to admit that Lu Feng's thinking was very clear. He also talked to Jiao Anfan. Compared with Lu Feng's sharpness, Jiao Anfan was more floating and covered with fog. It's just some humble opinion. I don't know if it will work or not. Mr. Ho saw that Lu Feng wanted to meet these people, so he coughed and leaned on the sofa and stopped talking. Mr. Lu glanced left and right, and said, "Let me introduce you, this is President Li of ICBC, this is President Sun of the local agricultural bank, this is the chairman of Fulong Fund, Zhuang Yuntian." Lu Feng politely said a few words one by one, and introduced Gao Jiwei and Du Kifeng to everyone by the way. These banks and investors don't care what your circle is, they only think if they can make money for them. "Mr. Lu, sit down." "It's okay, sit down, this is a private party, don't worry about anything." "That's right, how is our current electronics factory? What is the share structure, and what is the balance of funds?" From when Lu Feng entered the door more than an hour ago, no one answered, and now several funds and investors have taken the initiative to talk to him. This change is not a big one. Once the situation is opened, the situation will be much better. Du Kifeng is pushing cups and changing cups, chatting very lively, handing various business cards to each other. This so-called high-level private banquet, in fact, as long as the most powerful people accept you, others will take the initiative to curry favor with you. The so-called integration into the circle is nothing more than getting the approval of several bigwigs. Obviously, President Ho still disliked Lu Feng, but President Lu still recognized Lu Feng. Most importantly, these presidents and investors recognized him. Lu Feng was fooling around, but his eyes were always on Zhu Lidong. Not only was Mr. Lu aware of this situation, but many people present found that Lu Feng was always staring at Zhu Lidong with a smile, which was very wretched. "I'm sorry, I'm going to the bathroom." Zhu Lidong stood up a little uncomfortable and left. Lu Feng hurriedly put down the wine glass in his hand and said, "I'm going to the toilet." Several people who wanted to negotiate with Lu Feng about the equity of Jiafeng Electronic Technology were very dull, and whispered, "Does he like men?" Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 252. With so many big people present, Lu Feng didn't stare at him, but stared at Zhu Lidong. How could he not make people suspicious, but Zhu Lidong didn't look very good looking. A few people whispered a few words, just pretending that Lu Feng knew him, and helped to cover up on this occasion. In the men's bathroom, just as Zhu Lidong unbuttoned his pants, Lu Feng stepped in, stood beside him, turned his face to Zhu Lidong and smiled. Zhu Lidong was horrified by his smile. He didn't pee, so he lifted his pants and moved to the side. Lu Feng followed closely. So coincidentally, Mr. Zhu also went to the toilet, Lu Feng asked with a smile. Zhu Lidong couldn't urinate when he saw it, his face stiffened, and he said, "I told you to go to the toilet in front of you, Mr. Lu, I don't have any special hobbies. Don't stare at me. Look at what you said, you pee on you, you are a few years older than me, I'll call you brother, no problem," Lu Feng said very affectionately. Okay, let's go out and talk if you have something to say." Lu Feng held his pants in one hand and took out a cigarette from his pocket with the other. "Come on, smoke." Putting it into Zhu Lidong's mouth, and pressing it again, Lu Feng tied his trousers and asked, "Is Mr. Lu treating you well?" "Ah, it's good," Zhu Lidong wondered, "why are you asking this?" Generally, the better a boss is to a professional manager, it actually means that he is more guilty. Some bosses are always incompetent because of their incompetence. Mr. Lu is obviously not such a person, that is, there is another secret. Lenovo became a group last year. You pushed it all. I heard that has there been a major breakthrough in research and development, Lu Feng asked. Mr. Lu pays great attention to us. It is true that he has changed from an agent to independent research and development since this year. Zhu Lidong showed a proud smile on his face. Then do you have equity? You have really made great contributions to joining in the past few years. Lu Feng stared at him and said. This, Mr. Lu, let's go out and talk. Zhu Lidong started to wash his hands at the sink, wiped his hands with toilet paper, and said, the toilet doesn't smell good. After smoking the cigarette, you haven't said it yet. There's nothing the two of us can't say. It's not a commercial secret, right? Lu Feng patted him on the shoulder and said, I hit it off with you. Just now so many people rambled on me, even insulted and ridiculed me, but you didn't. I am a straight-hearted person, and whoever is good to whoever is. Yes, yes, Lu is always a sincere person. To be honest, he has no equity, no shares, that is to earn some salary, bonuses, etc. Zhu Lidong said with a bitter face, and now Lenovo is very good. Brother, you can't be too hard-hearted when you come out. Let me tell you something, don't tell it, it's just gossip. Lu Feng glanced around nervously, and said in a low voice, Lenovo will immediately, it's going to be nationalized. What? Zhu Lidong looked shocked. Be quiet. Lu Feng took a puff and said, who is Lenovo's largest shareholder? The Chinese Academy of Sciences has made a technological breakthrough. What if it is controlled by foreign capital? You, the general manager, are working hard right now. It's over, there's nothing to do with you, people will discuss with the other side to completely nationalize, make a lot of money, kick you around by the way, and become the chairman or general manager of a state-owned enterprise. It's a proper career, you don't understand. A layer of cold sweat broke out behind Zhu Lidong's back, and the whole person was a little dazed. In the past few years, there have been constant news about nationalization, and people who listen to all kinds of voices are almost nervous. Why don't you give you equity, even if you give 0.1%, it's still an incentive, isn't it? Lu Feng said unhappily for him, it's because you have equity in your hand, and it's hard to handle it at that time, but now the better you are, the softer you speak, just for the sake of seeing you in the future. Mr. Lu, is your news reliable? Zhu Lidong looked at Lu Feng suspiciously. Big brother, younger brother can tell you something unreliable? Do you know how I made it? Zhu Lidong really studied his information about Lu Feng. After all, he was very popular a few days ago, and he said, I heard that he is taking out loans all over the country. At that time, it was almost decided to be a speculator, and I was directly pulled out and killed. I said no, who am I? The little prince in the northwest, I said I was going to make a phone call. I called and I came out the next day, Lu Feng said with a face. He smiled and said, how many people have gone to settle the disputes about the electronics factory? I'll be safe once I go, do you know why? You have a way. I told you this because I really regarded you as my own brother. Brother, I have no way to go today. In our province, I belong to the crab, understand. As for this matter, although it is gossip, I will go. When I was in the office of a provincial leader, I accidentally looked at the documents on the desk. Lu Feng nodded at him with a mysterious look on his face. Zhu Lidong looked startled. Just as he was about to ask something, a waiter walked in and saw the two standing by the sink, and said, Mr. Ho is about to speak, you two should go out quickly. Okay, got it. Lu Feng waved his hand, gave Zhu Lidong a wink, and walked out the door. There is a small stage of several square meters in front of the banquet hall. Mr. Ho stood under the spotlight with a smile on his face, and everyone present stood or sat looking at the stage. Gao Jiwei stood beside the sofa, holding a wine glass in his hand, looking slightly up, looking at Lu Feng and said, Mr. Lu, where have you been? I haven't seen you for a long time. I went to the toilet and smoked a cigarette, Lu Feng said casually. Mr. Lu looked at Zhu Lidong and asked, what's wrong? Are you feeling uncomfortable? Fine. Why don't you go back soon? Don't work too hard, just a few days after the new year, you can rest for a few more days. President Lu cared. Zhu Lidong didn't know what he meant by this. If he must have thought that the boss was good to him before, now Lu Feng said such a thing, he had a nose and eyes, and he was muttering in his heart. It's okay, Zhu Lidong refused. Mr. Ho on the stage said in a loud voice, my friends and comrades, I am very happy to be here tonight. I believe that more than 70% of the richest people in the country will be gathered tonight. Our high-tech industrial park will welcome it, will grow and will be subdivided into major professional industrial parks. The applause came one after another. There is no shortage of people who hold stinky feet here. These people are very important to identity. If you catch up, you can only follow a few. As for those returnees, the circle of famous schools is still monolithic. Lu Feng didn't want to listen to his nonsense. He turned his head and glanced at the crowd. He really didn't care about those banks. Now domestic banks are sub-regional, and it is almost impossible to get loans across regions. They all get loans from local industrial and commercial banks, agricultural banks, or local banks. Instead, some fund, investment and other companies are very research-oriented. Zhuang Yuntian is sitting there drinking wine to himself. He is 47 years old this year. As the mainland chairman of Fulong Fund, he has long cooperated with major companies to conduct a series of capital transactions such as equity transactions and loans. Mr. Lu, Zhuang Yuntian raised his head and saw that Lu Feng was slightly surprised. He reached out and touched his sideburns and asked, is something wrong? Lu Feng sat down and asked, Mr. Zhuang, where is your accent? I was born in Singapore, my father is European and American, and my mother is from the mainland, a mixed-race child, Zhuang Yuntian said as he took a glass of red wine and drank it. My father is from Halong village, and my mother is from Kegliang village. In a sense, I am also a mixed race. Zhuang Yuntian was amused by what he said. He picked up the glass next to him, poured a glass of wine, put it in front of Lu Feng and said, I brought this myself, brandy, it's very expensive. Lu Feng picked it up and smelled it. The taste was weird, and he took a sip to his throat. Mr. Lu, I have been in love with you for a long time. I also participated in the GMA Foods financing competition, but I was brushed off by Mr. Gao in the first wave, because I didn't give him any money, Zhuang Yuntian whispered. Lu Feng's face stiffened, and he said with a smile, then don't blame others. If it were me, I would have to brush you off too. Ha ha ha, Mr. Lu is really a humorous person. I will also say that Fulong Fund is very interested in GMA Food. If you are considering selling the equity in your hand, you can also consider us, and just follow the previous price. No, let's not talk about GMA Food. I have quit the management of GMA Food. I want to talk to you about Jiafeng. Lu Feng looked at him and smiled like a fox, and said, are you borrowing money? Borrow? Does Mr. Lu want to cross the bridge or mortgage? You also know that Jiao Anfan and I are incompatible with each other. Let's make a gambling agreement. You will give me 100 million yuan. The period is half a year. If my sales exceed Jiao Anfan within the period, the loan will be extended for 1 year, and if I lose, the standard interest rate will be increased by 80%, Lu Feng asked, how? Zhuang Yuntian frowned slightly and said, can I understand that you only need to use a part of the money to establish a leather bag company, and then buy your own products? You can surpass Jiao Anfan within a month, so you get a sum of money 1.5 years of interest-free loans. What are you talking about? You can have some harsh conditions. Lu Feng smiled reluctantly, he really had this idea. Mr. Lu, I understand your style of doing things. According to the Northeast saying, you are just playing white strips everywhere, and you eat in a hurry. You as a foreigner know so much, Lu Feng wondered. Zhuang Yuntian smiled, stretched out his finger and gestured for 8 and said, I went back to the mainland with my mother when I was 8 years old. High-speed text handwriting returns to the 1989 chapter list. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 253. Lu Feng originally wanted to be a foreigner, but he didn't expect to be a yellow-skinned and yellow-hearted person. The two looked at each other and laughed involuntarily. This is my business card. I believe we will cooperate. Lu Feng handed over his business card. Zhuang Yuntian took a look at it, took out a business card from his arms and handed it over and said, "Your electronics factory lacks a lot of startup capital, and GFN Electronic Technologies' debt ratio is almost 17%, you are right, we will have cooperation, but I am not interested in the semi-finished products you are building now, we are not venture capital. Where are there so many risks that are not risky? Do you know why I dare not bet on the TV?" Lu Feng said with a mysterious face. "Do you know the national plan?" National plan, Zhuang Yuntian wondered, what plan? Industrial upgrading, the electronics industry will reach the world's first-class level within the specified time, although I am not a state-owned enterprise, and I am not in any high-tech industrial park, but I can get the subsidy. This subsidy is given quietly, this is between countries competition, understand? Lu Feng winked at him. Zhuang Yuntian suddenly came to a realization, nodded and said, "What does President Lu mean? I have done everything I should have done in the early stage, and now I lack a little start-up capital. What I mean is that my equity will not change, and I will issue some corporate bonds through a leather bag company. You can buy it? My company will be acquired by the state at that time. Let me tell you, the price is sky high for the state to collect, you understand what I mean, it's no problem to double your corporate debt directly, and then write more interest rates." Lu Feng's meaning is very simple. It is to establish a company, entrust the corporate bonds of GFN Electronics, and then let Fulong Fund buy it. In this way, there is no relationship between Fulong Fund and GFN Electronics. As for the contract, it must be nationalized, but when will it be nationalized? I guess in the next life. Zhuang Yuntian has heard a lot of these things. The country is undergoing industrial upgrading and investment promotion. If a reliable person told him, he would still believe it. The key is that Lu Feng is unreliable in his heart. There are many methods of such operations, and it is not surprising. Zhuang Yuntian thought about it and said, "I have to report this matter to the headquarters. Is it convenient for Mr. Lu to reveal the code name of this kind of project?" "I'm sorry, it's top secret." Lu Feng saw that Mr. Ho on the stage had finished speaking, stood up and said, "You can talk, you don't believe I'm normal, if you have the opportunity, you can come to my company and have a seat, I'll find you one. Trustworthy." Lu Feng stood up and walked towards Zhu Lidong. The atmosphere at the scene reached its peak. There were 3 or 5 people around the big guys who were polite to each other. Lu Feng took the opportunity to walk to Zhu Lidong's side and said, "There are too many people, let's eat something over there." "Mr. Zhu is talking to me, what are you doing?" A short middle-aged man looked at Lu Feng. "Why are you talking so much? Go, I'm talking to Mr. Zhu now, let's go." Lu Feng put his arms around Zhu Lidong's shoulders and pulled him aside. "Sorry, let's talk back to talk. Who are you? You're robbing people after chatting for a while, really?" Lu Feng pulled Zhu Lidong to the buffet area, picked up a plate, and took 2 pieces of pastry for him. By the way, he asked for a cup of tea and ate it in a remote place. "Yes, it's delicious." Lu Feng nodded while eating. Zhu Lidong didn't even bother to eat, he kept looking at Lu Feng and said, "Mr. Lu, what's the matter with you? I told you just now, you must not be too stupid. Really, businessmen are all treacherous these days. A simple and honest person like me has already disappeared like a giant panda. I just want to see your heart and soul." He is working part-time, and it seems that he has fallen into a trap, Lu Feng said sincerely. I don't think it's possible. It's been so many years. It's been talking about nationalization, but now state-owned enterprises are undergoing a large number of mixed ownership reforms. I heard that there will be big changes in state-owned enterprises in the next few years. How is that possible? Lu Feng shook his head again and again. Think about it. Can you rest assured that the country won't hold these important companies in its hands? There were rumors before, but now Lenovo has started researching and developing independently. In a few minutes, Zhu Lidong's brows were already wrinkled and his face was ugly. Now the debate about the iron rice bowl is extremely fierce. Whether the iron rice bowl is still iron or not, can state-owned enterprises be able to withstand it? Private companies can make money, have strong market competitiveness, and pay high wages. Just like GMA Foods, it has dug all the corners of some surrounding state-owned enterprises. Market efficiency is not good, subsidies for state-owned enterprises have declined, and state-owned enterprises are allowed to go bankrupt. The shadow of the next few years can already be seen in some state-owned enterprises. However, there has always been a trend of superstitious belief in the iron rice bowl among the people. The idea of these people is that the country cannot ignore it. According to this line of thinking, the most powerful voice is that state-owned enterprises will not be finished, but private enterprises will be cleaned up. These speculative people will definitely have nothing in the end, and the voice of nationalization of private enterprises is particularly strong. This kind of sound has always penetrated from the bottom to the ears of these people. Lenovo's situation is too special. The major shareholder is the Chinese Academy of Sciences, and the research and development is done by the Chinese Academy of Sciences. This is a state-owned enterprise, but it only has a small share of private equity. Don't be naive, prepare yourself for a way back. Lu Feng patted him on the shoulder and said, if you need it, I can help you find it. Of course, brother, my door is always open for you. If you want, don't you want to take a look? I really didn't think about it that much. Thank you, Mr. Lu, for the point. I've been busy with work recently. It's just the beginning of the year and there are many dinner parties. I'll definitely visit your factory when I have time, Zhu Lidong said with a frustrated expression. Free to go? Lu Feng frowned secretly. He didn't know when he was free. He pondered for a while and said, Mr. Zhu, I really think of you as a brother. Brother, I am a very simple and honest person. I know, I believe. One dared to speak, the other dared to believe. The two of them stood there holding hands, almost hugging each other and crying. I came here to express my importance, to show that what I said is true. When you are free, when I leave the capital, I will go to the south with you. If you are not free for a month, brother will wait for you for a month. If you are not free for a year, I will wait for you for a year, and if I am not free for a lifetime, I will wait for you for the rest of my life. Lu Feng patted his chest with his hand and said, I am so sincere in making friends with Lu Feng. Mr. Lu, what are you doing? I'm still calling Mr. Lu, I'm sorry. If you let me hear you call me that, I'll turn my head and leave. You know, you hurt my brother, Lu Feng said with a gloomy face. Brother? Lu Feng excitedly waved to the waiter and took 2 glasses of red wine. Many people at the scene have noticed this. President Liu's face is not good looking. Lu Feng has been muttering to his general manager all night, what's the matter? Gao Jiwei whispered, I don't know whether to envy him or feel sorry for him. How? Du Kefeng asked. Obviously, Mr. Lu has set a trap for Mr. Zhu and wanted to poach people, but he was sloppy, not to mention it. Gao Jiwei turned his head to look at Du Kefeng and asked, you are the one from whom he came from. Where did you dig it? I didn't dig it, I was bankrupt and I didn't want to live anymore. I was about to jump into the Yellow River. He stopped me and said that there was a factory for me to manage. Du Kefeng recalled those days and sighed, some pain will accompany people. Lifetime. Then why don't you look for the dead now? Gao Jiwei wondered. Money heals all wounds. Gao Jiwei. President Liu stepped forward and looked at the two of them and asked, "What are you talking about, so oblivious?" "I'm just talking about starting a business." "I'm very emotional, Mr. Liu, Zhu and I always meet each other late." "I wonder if you can cut our love," Lu Feng asked with a bit of a joke. President Liu looked a little suspicious, and said, "Dug someone on my head. I'm just joking when I said that. Besides, outstanding talents also need to be trained. Let them exercise more with you," Lu Feng said with a smile. "Mr. Zhu is my capable man, so don't think about it, Mr. Liu." Mr. Liu looked at Zhu Lidong and said, "Let's go, the banquet is almost over, say hello to Mr. Ho." President Liu is leaving, Lu Feng waved his hand and said, "Slow down. People have already left the scene one after another." Lu Feng pointed his fingers at Gao Jiwei and Du Kefeng, walked towards the door, walked to the door and asked, "Is that guy dead?" It's a sudden heart attack, and I'm out of danger." "That's good, it's none of my business." Lu Feng walked into the elevator. The elevator began to descend. Lu Feng looked at Gao Jiwei and the two beside him and asked, "Is there any gain?" There are several food business executives who have gotten to know each other, as well as a few local food associations, and many investors. They have gained a lot, and it is considered an opening. "That's fine, just cancel tomorrow's ticket for me," Lu Feng said with a blank expression. The takeoff cannot be cancelled tomorrow." Gao Jiwei looked at Lu Feng's expression quietly as he spoke. The decision was unexpected, but reasonable. "Then it will be invalid, and the specific booking time will be set again. Do you have anything to do here? Is it related to GFN Electronics?" Lu Feng turned his face and stared at Gao Jiwei coldly and said, "Since you care so much about GFN Electronics, why don't you become a president?" "Okay, even though Zhang Fengxia is also the president, I don't think I should lower her head." Cough cough cough, Du Kefeng coughed violently. Gao Jiwei smiled awkwardly and hurriedly said, "No need." The elevator door opened, Lu Feng stepped out, and said solemnly, "The future of GMA Food is not much smaller than that of GFeng. Electronic companies are high-end industries, but the food industry is a necessity. Don't be too ambitious." High-speed text handwriting returns to the 1989 chapter list. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 254. Gao Jiwei agreed in a muffled voice and didn't speak again. Lu Feng knew that Gao Jiwei had always wanted to get involved with GFN Electronics, and Lu Feng had to put him out of his mind. If the tragic war in the food industry will start in the next 2 or 3 years, then the beacon fire in the TV industry has already been ignited. GFN Electronics wanted someone who was like a wolf, like a tiger. Gao Jiwei was not such a person, so he always rejected Gao Jiwei. Facing such fierce competition, Lu Feng wanted a pair of sharp fangs. Zhu Lidong is such a person. Back at the hotel, it was already past 11 o'clock in the evening, and there were cats and mice playing on the TV. Zhang Xiaoyan had already fallen asleep with her arms around her. Lu Feng quietly turned off the TV and the lights without disturbing the two of them. He sat by the window and looked at the cold night outside, wondering if Zhu Lidong was worth it. Lenovo is definitely the leader of the high-tech industrial park now. It will be the big brother here for many years to come. Poaching Zhu Lidong will definitely offend President Liu. Lu Feng didn't believe what happened before. After smoking several cigarettes in a row, Lu Feng twisted the cigarette butt into the ashtray. He had already made up his mind to poach people and offend him. Anyway, sooner or later, the electronics industry would have to fight Lenovo. The next day, the high-tech industrial park conference officially started. The latest scientific and technological achievements of major companies will be exhibited. Many TV stations have made special reports, and many important media have focused on this. However, these bosses in the industrial park all focused on one thing. Last night, Lu Feng scolded a boss for having a heart attack and almost didn't save him. In front of the major booths, many bosses visited each other, but the topics were a little off. "You're young, why is your mouth so poisonous?" Let me tell you, the scolding was really harsh, and I didn't jump up in one breath, so I lay down on the ground. If it weren't for the preparation of a medical team, it would have been fatal. Mr. Jiao said he was a country bumpkin, that's right. When Lu Feng opened his eyes, it was already past 9 in the morning. Duo was lying on his chest, holding a crayon in his hand, drawing very seriously. "What are you doing?" "Our teacher, teacher asked me to paint." The little guy hurriedly put his hands behind his back, pouted his mouth, rolled his big eyes, and quickly jumped out of bed and ran away. Lu Feng lowered his head and glanced at it. The paintings on his belly were a mess, and his whole body was also suffering from a headache. He got out of bed and was about to go to the bathroom to wash. The door was suddenly pushed open, and Zhang Xiaoyan walked in, followed by a few waiters. "You can call the front desk directly and instruct in the future, and we will deliver it to the bedroom. Whatever you need, just ask, we will try our best to meet your request." Zhang Xiaoyan agreed twice, looked up to see Lu Feng, and burst out laughing. The two waiters couldn't help laughing when they saw Lu Feng, but they didn't dare to laugh. "Are you still laughing? You locked her in a room with me, and took a crayon to paint the world," Lu Feng said helplessly. "It's not like you don't know our living ancestor." Zhang Xiaoyan stood there smiling, leaning back and forth. "It's so funny, it's not the first time she's drawn, you should really clean up her." When Duo heard that he was about to be beaten, he hurriedly stood with his big eyes full of grievances, and lowered his head, giving people an indescribable sense of pity. "Go look in the mirror," Zhang Xiaoyan said with a smile. Lu Feng glanced at the mirror and almost exploded. He painted it from head to toe. One eye was painted black, the other was painted green, a few purple ripples were painted on his forehead, and he spent a lot of fish. After taking a few showers in a row, he was finally clean. Duo was beaten for a long time, and he was tired from crying. After breakfast, it was past 10 o'clock. Zhang Xiaoyan packed everything and looked ready to leave. "Let's not leave for now." "Why didn't you leave?" Zhang Xiaoyan asked in surprise. "There are a few important people that need to be discussed." "The exact time is still uncertain," Lu Feng said. Zhang Xiaoyan nodded and said, "Well, it's boring here. Next door is Zidane, go spend it." "The stuff inside is so expensive." Zhang Xiaoyan shook her head repeatedly. She could feel that Lu Feng really had no money now, and the card was only a few 100,000, which is a huge sum for ordinary people, and for Lu Feng's kind in terms of level, it's really just a living expense. That day, probably because of the industry conference, there was no phone call. Lu Feng was also happy to play with him, and bought some clothes for Zhang Xiaoyan by the way. Zhang Xiaoyan's body is definitely a model body, and she looks good in everything she wears. Many shop assistants praise her as a clothes rack. In the next few days, I went to GMA Foods headquarters for a few days. During the past few days, Zhuang Yuntian kept asking around about what Lu Feng said, and Zhu Lidong also began to pay attention to some voices around him. For the first time, he found that there were so many voices about Lenovo's nationalization around him, and even many bigwigs were talking about it in private, but not explicitly. He took the opportunity to make a trip to the Chinese Academy of Sciences, ask some people, and got a lot of vague answers, which made him even more muttered. Zhu Lidong, who originally believed that he would continue working at Lenovo, was confused for the first time, and everyone should think about the future. On the fifth day, Lu Feng received a call from Zhu Lidong and learned that Lu Feng was still waiting for him in the capital. Zhu Lidong was a little moved and asked to have dinner at a restaurant, and he treated him as a guest. At noon, the weather in the capital had begun to warm up, and the cold wind was less severe. Lu Feng did not take Zhang Xiaoyan and went to the hotel alone. In the private room, after 5 days, the high-spirited Zhu Lidong's face actually looked a little haggard. He suspected that this thing was really a disease. He couldn't eat or sleep well these days, and he felt like he was kept in the dark. Like a fool, desperately trying to make someone else's wedding dress. The original sense of honor and existence was instantly disintegrated. Mr. Lu. You still call me President Lu? Lu Feng stood up abruptly and said, you didn't take me as a brother, so there's no need to eat this meal, and I don't need to wait any longer. No, no, brother, you sit. Zhu Lidong hurriedly pulled Lu Feng to his seat. Lu Feng sat down and sighed, I know you are very motivated, want to do a career, want to get ahead, but also prepare a way for you. You can go to my place to see. Of course, I am not poaching you, just being a brother gives you a choice, understand? I know, let's eat first. We talked a lot during this meal, but Lu Feng just told him that as a brother, he will always reserve a position for him in GFN Electronics, and can give him the highest salary and even equity, and there will always be a great career waiting for him here. By the way, I introduced what GFN Electronics has to do. It is nothing more than the first in the industry, what to sell to Europe and the United States, a global electronic brand, attach importance to research and development, step on the Western world, and let them call them dad. Lu Feng simply spoke to Zhu Lidong's heart and kept nodding. What he wanted to do was to create a great company with his own hands. Brother, let's see, the day after tomorrow, I'll go to see you. I feel that my philosophy has already diverged greatly from Lenovo's development, Zhu Lidong said seriously. Okay, but don't say it. You have to find other reasons. It's not certain. Brother, I'm afraid of cheating you. I'm afraid that the nationalization will have no effect. In the end, your future will be ruined. Lu Feng was worried. Road. Zhu Lidong raised his hand and waved, I know my brother is for my own good, I understand better than anyone else. After 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Lu Feng sent Zhu Lidong away, thinking to himself that he was 50% sure about this matter. It was estimated that he had a hard time these days. If a person is in a company, once he can't find his self-worth and sense of existence, he really can't stay for a day. If he continues to work, he will only deny himself, and that kind of suffering will make people depressed. Lu Feng received another call from Zhuang Yuntian in the afternoon. He has been calling Lu Feng for the past 2 days, but he is still greedy for GMA food. There will be no small increase in the future. If he wasn't in a hurry to use the money, Lu Feng would not have cashed out, and he would never have easily sold the equity in the future. 2 days later, a plane from Beijing to Suzhou landed. There were several commercial vehicles parked outside the airport. Zhang Fengxia, who hadn't seen her for a few months, was standing there in her professional attire. Much more like a boss. Sister Xiaoyan, little guy, do you miss me? Zhang Fengxia reached out and pinched Duo Duo's face. Let's talk later, get in the car first, Lu Feng said. Only then did Zhang Fengxia realize that there was another person she didn't know, and she looked at her and said, okay. Lu Feng and Zhang Fengxia were in a car. The car sped towards the electronics factory. Zhang Fengxia said, today there is a meeting in the city, and I'm going to let you go. I won't go, no one will be seen for the past 2 days, so I'll accompany him. Lu Feng closed his eyes and rested. Who is this? Another swindler, Zhang Fengxia asked curiously. Tisk, what are you talking about? You're not allowed to say that, you know, Lu Feng frowned. When Zhang Fengxia heard this, she knew in her heart that this was still a formidable swindler, and said, why do you think about deceiving people all day long? Lu Feng opened his eyes and said, what lies? You don't sound good at all. It's called talent introduction. He's probably your partner. Didn't you say let me take care of it? Zhang Fengxia was a little unhappy. Do you understand the market? Lu Feng stared at her and said, "For market expansion, with so many companies competing, can you cut a hole and let the product go out?" Zhang Fengxia stopped talking. She didn't have that ability. This is a matter of life and death for the company. During this time, there were more and more staff, and she was a little bit struggling with internal management. She quietly called Gao Jiwei several times. "Then you're not very good, weren't you all busy at GMA Food? I am in charge of the overall operation. Gao Jiwei will implement any ideas I have. He understands what I mean and can implement them well." "This is such a person." Lu Feng leaned on the back and said, "Don't. After speaking, I will introduce the situation in a while, don't smile, be serious." "Oh," Zhang Fengxia pouted, slightly unhappy. Zhang Xiaoyan often calls Zhang Fengxia, and the two have a good relationship, so she said, "Just talk when you speak, and do whatever you want with your emotions." It makes her a little unhappy. Lu Feng glanced at Zhang Xiaoyan, and he was inexplicably beaten by her. He was speechless, so he closed his eyes and went to sleep. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 255. Zhang Xiaoyan and Zhang Fengxia chatted all the way, and Lu Feng wondered if it was a bit inappropriate for him to arrange Zhang Fengxia as Jia Feng's president. The old factory area, which had been hit by wind and rain for 2 or 3 years, was repainted, and all the accumulated debris and weeds were cleaned out. A huge stainless steel gate was erected at the entrance, with the words Jia Feng Electronics. The car drove directly into the factory and stopped in front of the office building. Zhang Fengxia turned her head and said, "It's here." After opening the door and getting out of the car, Zhang Xiaoyan realized how big the factory is. The expanded flat ground is all concrete, and some pine trees are planted not far away. The office area here is a 5-story townhouse, painted in gray and white colors. On the roof are some huge characters that say office building. Looking into the distance, a series of buildings such as warehouses and workshops can be vaguely seen. Zhang Xiaoyan is quite shocked by the size of this place. Is this too big? The construction area of 2000 mu was a key project at the beginning, so it can't be big, Zhang Fengxia explained. Lu Feng walked towards the car behind, the driver opened the door, Zhu Lidong walked down and looked around and said, "It's so big." "Yeah, how else could it be so expensive?" Lu Feng said with a smile. A dozen or so people came out of the office building, and they looked like they were the management. They stepped forward and looked at Lu Feng with smiles on their faces. Zhang Fengxia introduced, "This is the manager of our business department. At present, more than 5,000 people have settled in this factory, and the management at all levels is basically complete. Many of them are dug from surrounding state-owned enterprises." Lu Feng was only polite to the people below. Once the company officially started operation, these managers, supervisors, etc. would be eliminated very quickly. If they haven't made a familiar face, they may leave because their performance is not up to standard. What are these workers doing every day now? Lu Feng walked towards the production area, surrounded by dozens of people around Wang, and Wang. The construction officially started after the 15th day of the first lunar month. In the early stage, we mainly did some cleaning work. Now the cleaning work has been completed, and some employees have also moved into the dormitory. Now it is mainly training, familiar with the assembly line, operating various machinery, and at the same time for some technicians. 1 training and 2, it's hard to find someone. Zhang Fengxia introduced as she walked, there are warehouses, there are 6 large warehouses in total, 2 of which are suitable for storing special chemical materials. The finished product warehouse can accommodate hundreds of tons of storage, and the raw material warehouse also has a storage capacity of hundreds of tons. The first batch of raw materials are currently stored in the warehouse. There are also staff's work clothes and other things. In order to manage uniformly, work clothes, badges, serial numbers, etc. have been customized for employees. This period of time has begun to be standardized, and some systems such as enterprise internal management regulations and production safety regulations have been initially completed. President Wang of the Commerce Department has talked about a lot of cooperative enterprises in the past few days, and many raw materials are provided by President Hong. Lu Feng nodded slightly. Mr. Hong was just waiting for today. He made a lot of money for the decoration of the 2 villas. In the management here, Lu Feng can see the shadow of a lot of GMA food, and everything is in an orderly manner. Mr. Zhu, do you see it? There are 3 very large workshops in front of you. Once the assembly line here runs all night, the core components of color TVs can produce tens of millions of pieces every year, and they will be shipped to all parts of the country. We take after Panda's full set of technical patents are authorized. This is originally Panda's branch. Lu Feng looked at Zhu Lidong and asked, do you know what this means? What? Panda has collapsed. I will mass produce and take a dominant position in the industrial chain. Once mass produced, the price will be reduced. First of all, our products will cover the entire Yangtze River Delta region and go deep into the countryside. I want it's not absolute profit, but market share. Lu Feng looked around and said solemnly, even if there is only 10% profit, I will continue to work. As long as I completely destroy those companies in the market, the future profit is mine, the first one I build. Things are often destruction, and a miracle will happen here. Lu Feng glanced at Zhu Lidong and said, brother, this is where our brothers are, and where we scolded Fang Qiu. Brother, let me put a message here. Jiafeng Electronics will always leave you the position of president, Jiafeng. Feng Electronics is mine as well as yours. As long as you come, there is no distinction between you and me. Lu Feng's remarks can be said to be too heartwarming, and it is really the greatest emotion to say this in front of so many managements. Brother, it's enough to have your words. Only here I can feel what a vast world is, and I can do a lot. Zhu Lidong looked at everything around him with emotion. It's not just empty words. I know you have the ability. What is a brother? What a brother is? What's yours is mine, what's mine is yours. Don't we know each other without distinction? Lu Feng said decisively. Zhang Xiaoyan on the side was a little anxious. Why did she give it to him in vain? Didn't it cost a lot of money to buy it? She wanted to speak, but she was afraid of saying the wrong thing. Not to mention Zhang Xiaoyan, all the management were a little shocked, staring at Zhu Lidong, curious about the identity of this person. Zhang Fengxia was also a little surprised. What kind of person made Lu Feng fall into such a big trap? Zhu Lidong felt that his eyes were a little wet, and he took a deep breath and hugged Lu Feng's shoulders and hugged him twice. At this moment, he actually found a feeling of home here. After walking around in the workshop, it was noon in the blink of an eye, and he ate a meal in the cafeteria. The meal was quite enjoyable, but Zhu Lidong insisted on flying back in the afternoon, and there was a meeting in the evening. Lu Feng held him back for a long time, and finally sent him to the airport in person. Wait for my news. Zhu Lidong patted Lu Feng on the shoulder and said. It's all right, don't worry, it's not too late to come over after the contact is nationalized. Anyway, there will always be a place for you here, don't worry, Lu Feng said seriously. After watching Zhu Lidong leave, Lu Feng breathed a sigh of relief. Which company does he belong to? Make you work so hard, Zhang Fengxia said from the side. It's not easy to cheat, right? What? Lu Feng turned his head and asked, how much money is still on the account? How many millions? After the mortgage loan from the bank is taken down and transferred to the city directly, there are only a few million left, enough for 2 months. Anyway, life has been very stressful. I called Mr. Gao to talk. He said that this is the way to work for you, and the financial situation is always tight, Zhang Fengxia said with a speechless expression. Don't tell him too many things that shouldn't be said. I need to get a startup fund as soon as possible. How is the tax exemption situation in the city? When Zhang Fengxia heard that he wanted to go out to make money, her first thought was to rob the bank, and she said, I went to ask several times, but no, they said that we are not a company that attracts investment and can't enjoy it. What shit? Who said that? What did Huang Yowei say? What the tax department said, I don't dare to offend those people, Zhang Fengxia whispered, they even beat the table with me. I originally wanted to find Secretary Huang, but I couldn't see anyone at all. Make an appointment for me at night. If he doesn't see him, I'll stop him at the door of his house, Lu Feng said and got into the car. Zhang Fengxia nodded. When she really managed a business, she realized that being too polite and good quality is not necessarily a good thing. On the contrary, it is a treacherous person like Lu Feng, who is like a duck in water in this environment, and everyone is afraid of him, because no one knows what he will do with no limit. Zhang Fengxia thought about asking Lu Feng to hold a meeting tomorrow to get acquainted with the management, but was rejected by Lu Feng, thinking that it was not the right time. The machine of GFN Electronics was not running yet, so there was no need to mess with it. In the afternoon, I made more than a dozen calls in a row, but I couldn't find anyone at all. After various reasons, Lu Feng arranged Zhang Xiaoyan into the hotel, thinking about sending them to Shenzhen first, and called Mr. Hong, let him arrange a better kindergarten, and the other party agreed. After waiting until after 5 o'clock in the evening, Huang Yowei was still unable to be contacted. Lu Feng simply found a car, went to the market to buy some gifts, and went directly to the gate of the compound to wait. At 6 o'clock, Huang Yowei's wife came back with a vegetable basket. Lu Feng pushed open the car door and walked out. Sister, did you go shopping? The other party glanced at Lu Feng in a daze, and said in surprise, Why are you outside? No one will come out to pick you up in this compound. I can get in. I'm here to pay you New Year's greetings. I'm going back to the north during the Chinese New Year. I'm really sorry. Lu Feng opened the car door and said, Get in the car. Oh, you are too polite, come here, what to buy, our old Huang hasn't come back yet. After driving the car into the compound, Lu Feng moved boxes of various items into the house one by one, and waited until almost 7 o'clock when the food was cooked. The door was pushed open, and Huang Yowei came back. He took off his coat and hung it on the shelf, and said happily, Old lady, that kid is back today, just as I guessed. He desperately called me, who am I, and he still wants to find me? I too not stupid, can he be used by him? He will definitely not be able to find it in a while. Mr. Huang is back. Lu Feng stuck his head out of the kitchen wearing an apron, his face full of surprise. Huang Yowei froze on the spot. He calculated everything. Damn, his home was stolen. Lu Feng. This young man has given us New Year's greetings, he bought a lot of things, you're so polite. Huang Yowei's wife came out after speaking. Lu Feng looked at him with a smile, stepped forward and said, Mr. Huang, I can't find you, right? I don't do things like this, bro, I've taken care of you, and I've done a lot of work for you. High-speed text handwriting returns to the 1989 chapter list. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 256. Huang Yowei's face was a little ugly, but he still maintained the most basic state and said with a smile, I've been busy with work recently, and there are a lot of meetings every day, so I have to go down to investigate, and next time I come, I won't take so many things, and I will be seen by others. Not good. It's just an ordinary gift, it's not worth much, Mr. Huang, although I sometimes play tricks, I'll never cheat or slip when I do things for you. If I can't eat and wipe it off, I'll retreat. It's not kind. Huang Yuewei's eyes were a bit angry, and he asked, what did I eat from you? What did I take for you? You didn't eat me, you didn't take me, what are you afraid of? Who's afraid of you? Oh shit, you little comrade is talking. Don't be afraid. I called President Zhang on the first day of the new year and asked to find you. It's hard to find, let alone you, even Secretary Kui has come and gone without a trace. Lu Feng sat down and said, you have solved the electronics factory, you have been commended and praised, I have read the newspapers, advanced individual. Are you here for New Year's greetings, or are you looking for trouble? Huang Yuewei sullenly slapped the table and said, get out of here, get out. I don't give a you can hit me. Lu Feng sat there with his hands on his chest and shouted, if you dare to hit me, I will buy all the headlines that can be bought in the whole country tomorrow, and tell the whole country, Huang Yuewei is hitting someone. You are a hooligan, a rogue. Huang Yuewei scolded Lu Feng with his finger. Humph, you're a rogue, run away. After taking advantage of it, Lu Feng stood up and went into the kitchen to help bring out the dishes. Huang Yuewei's wife came out and asked, why are you arguing again? You bring everyone home, Huang Yuewei said angrily. It's not what you said, Xiao Lu is his own person, you're welcome. Huang Yuewei's wife said angrily, eat and eat. Lu Feng rudely picked up his rice bowl and started eating. He didn't drink alcohol during the meal, and Huang Yuewei sat there smoking after dinner. Judging from his expression, he was very worried now. I just have one request, tax exemption for 3 years. Huang Yuewei shook his head. Then I'll leave, I can really leave, places like Dongguan and Shantou are better than this, the loans are particularly sufficient, and they're also interest-free, the land is free, I'll sell the factory here, and I still have some leftovers in my hand. Pay some money, Lu Feng threatened. Let's go. Huang Yuewei took a cigarette and waved his hand again and again. If I leave, I won't come back. At that time, I will scold you at major banquets and pay someone to post your office phone number in the men's bathroom and write. You, Huang Yuewei was almost amused by him, scolded for a long time, you don't do any human affairs. Mr. Huang, you're doing this very indignantly. I'm really short of money now, and I'm going crazy. I'm telling you very seriously now, if you don't agree, I'll have to move. When the time comes to sell the empty factory, the company can live a little longer, Lu Feng said solemnly. Huang Yuewei still didn't speak, he was a little hesitant. Of course he wanted to keep Lu Feng. This is a big company. The problem is that it has already given tax exemption to several companies. The company must have rushed to ask him why. Only you, Lu Feng, no Huang Yuewei. Seeing that he didn't speak, Lu Feng twisted the cigarette butt into the ashtray, stood up and said, you're a thigh, and I'm not even an arm. When you can use me, I'm an onion, and I can't use it. At that time, I was not even an old couple, and you are right, this place in Shenzhen was prepared by the state for those of us. Lu Feng said and walked out the door. Wait, it's not that I won't do it for you, but if I do it for you, my office will be crowded tomorrow. I can give you a 1-year exemption, but in private, let the finance return to you according to the subsidy, Huang Yuewei said. 1 year? Still sneaking, Lu Feng stood at the door and sighed, forget it, you don't love me after all, I'm going south, where there is my love and sadness. How many years do you want? 3 years, Lu Feng stretched out 3 fingers and said, all relief. No charge. Are you still haggling? Well, for 1.5 years, I can make the decision, otherwise I have to go to the province to hold a meeting to report, and the process is very troublesome. Huang Yuewei's old face was almost squeezed into one piece. It doesn't matter, you can waive it for me first. Even if this process takes 100 years, we have time, Lu Feng said from the door. Huang Yuewei rubbed his forehead with some headache, and said, I promise now that it's useless, and I'll go to the next one. If people don't recognize it, you're useless. I can give you such words, as long as I'm here, 3 years. Tax exemption, there is a premise, that is, you can't have an accident, and you must not do things like illegal fundraising in the past. With a smile on Lu Feng's face, he nodded again and again, don't worry, I'm definitely not going to do it. Can the local bank borrow some more money? Did you put your nose on your face? Hurry up and leave after dinner, I don't want to see you, I'm very upset. Huang Yowei waved his hands again and again. Then I'll go first, and I'll go to your office tomorrow to discuss. Fine. After leaving the family compound, the sky was already dark. Lu Feng was humming a song. He was relatively sure about Huang Yowei. Continuing to migrate to southern cities is also an option, but the problem is that once you continue south, transportation will be a particularly big problem. At the same time, there will be more competing companies. There are also advantages. First, I went to the factory to have a short meeting with Zhang Fengxia. It was almost 10 o'clock when I got back to the hotel. When Lu Feng saw that Zhang Xiaoyan was still awake, he said, go to rest early, the kindergarten has been arranged, and you can go there. Superior. When you're here and I'm over there, aren't you running at both ends? Zhang Xiaoyan sighed slightly tiredly, anyway, you are running at both ends, so why not stay at home? Sooner or later, it will be moved to Shenzhen, and the two places are much closer. The plane will arrive in more than an hour. I will go back when I have time. Lu Feng sat down and put his arms around her shoulders and comforted her softly. He knows that Zhang Xiaoyan is more suitable for a stable life, but how can there be stability in starting a business? I just want to live a comfortable life for a few days. Zhang Xiaoyan stared at the man in front of him. He was not motivated and wished him well, but now he hoped that he would be safe when he was a little rich. He laughed at himself and said, I support you. Lu Feng kissed her red lips and said, go to bed early. Are you busy tomorrow? Zhang Xiaoyan asked. I'm not busy, what's wrong? Lu Feng wondered. Zhang Xiaoyan stretched out his hand to lift his clothes and whispered in his ear, why go to bed early? If you don't have a good pregnancy, you have to work harder. You don't want a son. I really have no obsession with my son. You told me, didn't you? What would you do without a son earning so much money? Zhang Xiaoyan put her arm around Lu Feng's neck and whispered, last time the doctor said that it would be easier to change a few postures. The next day, Lu Feng didn't get up until 3 days later. Zhang Xiaoyan was wearing pajamas, with her hair tied up at wool, with an indescribable femininity on her face. She walked to the bed and said, get up quickly. It's not tiring to ride in the car, it's tiring to drive. Zhang Xiaoyan blushed when he said that. She stretched out her hand to hit him, and scolded, what nonsense, get up. Just woke up before eating. When the pager rang, Lu Feng shouted without turning his head, Duo Duo, bring Dad's pager here. Duo Duo trotted with bare feet, picked up the pager and pressed it skillfully a few times, and called in a tender voice, a man named Zhuang Yuntian asked you to call him back, and I have something important to discuss with you. Zhuang Yuntian? Lu Feng's heart skipped a beat, and a smile appeared on his face. He could sense that something good had happened recently, so he picked up a fried dough stick and put it in his mouth, and walked towards the phone. Hey, Mr. Zhuang, I just saw the news from the paging station. Zhuang Yuntian's voice came from the other end of the phone, Mr. Lu, I have asked the headquarters for your proposal. Anyway, the headquarters thinks that the risk is a bit high. You can't fool the industry with just one word. Do you have any proof? When Lu Feng heard this, his face was full of smiles. The foreign reports on domestic industrial upgrading were written by Wang, and there were countless conspiracy theories. It seemed that he was also fooled. If you want to get the money, it is not enough without any real skills. You need a heavyweight to testify in the middle. Lu Feng immediately thought of Huang Yuwei. Anyway, they are all pit people, just catch a pit and die. If you don't believe me, come here. I can take you to our dinner party. There is one rule, you can only listen and talk less. You will be the leader at that time, understand? Really, the other end of the phone got excited. If this was true, it would definitely be a surefire business. He said excitedly, I'll book the ticket now, and I'll be there in the evening. No problem. After hanging up the phone, Lu Feng rubbed his hands a little excitedly. He really fell asleep on the pillow. What a beautiful thing in the world. After 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Lu Feng carried a document bag into the municipal building. When he went there, Huang Yuwei was in a meeting. Secretary Kui came out to receive him, looked at Lu Feng and said with a smile, Mr. Lu, have a good new year. The year is over, Secretary Kui has gained weight. It's okay, you're a big businessman. I still want to ask my brother, when will the money be given? It was only then that Lu Feng remembered that Kui Ning's money had not been given yet. More than 1 million yuan is not a small sum of money. He pondered for a while and said, wait for the electronics factory to start production in a few days, let him come. Then I'll thank President Lu for him. If you don't tell me, he hasn't had a good time this year. What are you talking about? I've always been honest in my work. What do businessmen rely on? Isn't it based on honesty? Lu Feng said with a smile. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 257. It wasn't until after 4 o'clock that Huang Yuwei came back, followed by a bald man in his 50s, wearing a dark gray jacket and a briefcase, dressed as a standard leader. Are you here? Come in, Huang Yuwei beckoned to Lu Feng. After entering the office, Huang Yuwei sat down and said, let me introduce, the god of wealth in the city, Zhao Yuqian. Don't dare, this is Mr. Lu, right? I've heard of it, and it sure is a young hero. Zhao Yuqian shook hands with Lu Feng with a smile on his face. You will take care of it in the future. Lu Feng held his hand and said, I brought all the materials. Sign it, sign it. Everything seems to be simple. Jiafeng Electronics signed a local electronic technology development strategy support agreement with the city's finance department. The content in it is some useless waste regulations. The most important one is that the tax will be returned for 3 consecutive years. Grant. After signing and stamping, Lu Feng put his own agreement back into his portfolio, and said, I still want to thank Secretary Huang. It's dinner time, I'll treat you. Zhao Yuqian was happy, and he could still have a meal. The key is to have a meal with Huang Yuwei, which is really not easy. Huang Yuwei shook his head again and said, I'll go back to eat, you can leave if you have nothing else to do. I'm so sorry, I really want to invite you to dinner, I just want to thank you, there is no other meaning. Lu Feng didn't give Huang Yuwei too much chance to shirk. I made an appointment on the phone, no matter what, can't you skip a meal? This is also a little bit of President Lu's intention, Zhao Yuqian said aside. Huang Yuwei knew better than anyone else that he could not get much benefit from Lu Feng, and that the electronics factory was going to start up next, and there was a huge vacancy of funds. Okay, I still have something to do here, just wait here if you want. Huang Yuwei said that he turned his head and walked away wearing Zhao Yuqian. Lu Feng called Zhang Fengxia on the phone from the municipal government, and asked her to pick up Chuang Yuntian at the airport. At the same time, she booked a better restaurant, and asked Chuang Yuntian to wait at the meal time, and repeatedly asked her to follow her. Huang Yuwei's relationship is more serious. After hanging up the phone, Lu Feng sat on the bench in the office and waited. Now he has to guard. People need him. If he calls directly, he is useless. Now he needs him. It's hard to do. There are 7 or 8 people sitting on this bench. Some people have been waiting for more than a week. This is how they ask for help. Lu Feng chatted with a few people next to him and found that one of them was also a deputy county magistrate. It was already dark outside. Secretary Kui came over and glanced at everyone and said, "Go back, it's useless to block things that can't be done. They're going back after get off work." Everyone present sighed, stood up and left. Lu Feng knew that the office could go directly to the conference room through another door. If he went from the conference room, he would definitely come out from the main entrance of the compound. Lu Feng has been staring at it for so long, he must not leave. Seeing that Lu Feng was not leaving, Secretary Kui said, "Mr. Lu, you and Secretary Huang have known each other for a long time. Don't embarrass him. Besides, everyone is gone. What's the point of you staring here? The door will be locked for a while. I'm happy to sit here, okay? Mr. Lu, they're gone. I know, I'm sitting here, waiting for no one, I'll sleep here tonight." Lu Feng stared at him and said. "You." Secretary Kui sighed helplessly, turned his head and entered the office, looked at Huang Yowei and said, "The only one left is Mr. Lu, who is playing a rogue, don't leave." Huang Yowei checked that it was almost 7 o'clock in the evening, and it was completely dark outside. He knew that Lu Feng was determined and would definitely block him all night, closing the folders in his hand. "Go from the main entrance, you should also get off work." Opening the door and walking out, Huang Yowei saw Lu Feng sitting on the bench from a distance, walked over and said, "I won't eat this meal, I feel like I have to walk around." "How dare you? I don't dare to say that, I'm just a common man, I just want to treat you to a meal." Lu Feng stood up and said, "I agreed to your request, and I'll do it for you. Don't make a fuss. I've eaten the meal, and the clay figurine still has 3 points of fire. It's acquaintance, do you understand?" Huang Yowei said word by word. "Understood, give me your face, please." Lu Feng made a gesture of please. Going downstairs, Huang Yowei got into Lu Feng's car, but instead of letting Secretary Kui get in the car, Lu Feng kicked the accelerator and sped away. Wujiang state-owned hotel was originally a state-owned enterprise. Although the major shareholder changed after the mixed ownership reform in the past few years, the name has not changed. After a few years, the people who can come here to eat are definitely rich or expensive, and there are many now. A place where people show their identity. Lu Feng parked the car, Huang Yowei got out of the car and took a look, and said, "Just the two of us, just take a bite, why are you running here?" Lu Feng walked towards Huang Yowei and stood beside him, ready to grab him at any time to prevent him from running away. Now he told him that he would be angry and turn his face. If he went in, he would definitely leave the table in anger. "Is something wrong with you, kid?" Huang Yowei asked suspiciously. Lu Feng smiled and said, "Let me tell you something, don't get excited, isn't my factory short of startup capital?" "What?" Huang Yowei frowned and said, "You kid tied all the bank presidents in Suzhou here. How is it possible? I can do that, then I have to be shot." Huang Yowei's face was already ugly. He was really afraid of Lu Feng's chaos. When this person raised funds illegally, he felt that Lu Feng was too daring. According to his words at the time, this person had a gunshot brain. "You tell me honestly, if something really happens, I will fight for the death penalty for you." "That's right, I just want to find a way to get some money." Lu Feng explained everything one by one, stretched out a hand to stop Huang Yowei's back, and said, "I just want you to go in and talk to this village. Yuntian fooled a few words, please help." "Impossible." Huang Yowei's face was solemn, and he waved his hands again and again. "Absolutely impossible, what's my identity? Lie for you? Are you crazy or am I crazy? It's illegal, you know, it's called contract fraud." "What kind of fraud?" "He is willing to take advantage of himself, we either won't pay it back, or just take his money and use it, and return it to him if he has the money." This is not illegal fundraising, is it? And this is not a local enterprise. You say I've always kept it in my mind, I haven't committed it either. Huang Yowei leaned on the car and took a deep breath. He knew that this thing was not a good thing and something would definitely happen. The electronics factory had now become his face, and he had to mention a few words whenever he went to a meeting in the province. If this is a problem, it is to slap him in the face. Can't you be a stable and honest businessman? Huang Yowei said bitterly. Which entrepreneur did it honestly? Lu Feng looked at him and said, you think it's a state-owned enterprise. If you lose, you will lose. Someone will support you. As long as my heart is a little cleaner, I have to die. Mr. Huang, you have run a business, you should understand my current predicament. I used 1.5 billion to leverage such a large piece of cake. The mortgage loan contract signed with the bank is still there. Once it fails to work, I'm completely done. Even if it goes bankrupt, you still have GMA Foods. You are still a rich man. President Liu, we are familiar with each other. You lied to me. I really turned against you, and I went back, Huang Yowei said. About to go. How could Lu Feng let him go? He hugged him by the waist. You humming, let it go, you know what you're doing now. You have to help with this task. It's not for you to say what you say. Just give a straight word. Lu Feng put him next to the car, grabbed his arm and said, you have to help. If you don't help today. Do you know what you are talking about now? Let me tell you, I can make a phone call now. You are kidnapping. Actually, I can still go to Xiangjiang to fool a few fools, but the domestic market is running out of time, and now it's time to be a benefactor if you don't succeed, and you will be jailed if you go to jail. Now you are a fish and I am a knife. Lu Feng stared at him. He said solemnly, I can go to jail. I don't believe that you have no enemies, and I don't believe that I said something empty-handed, and no one checked you. Hearing this, Huang Yowei's expression softened a bit. It was really a dead fish and the net was broken. He reached out and patted Lu Feng's shoulder and said, why are you making such a fuss? Everyone is mutually beneficial, and this is easy to cause problems. No problem, the leather bag company, it has nothing to do with me. It's normal for you to drink and talk a little drunk. There are only 3 people in the private room. When you leave this door, the contract you signed has nothing to do with you. Lu Feng looked at him and said, I also know that this is very difficult for you. After it is done, I can buy you a villa or something on the other side of Xiangjiang and go on vacation. Looking at the bustling night scene, Huang Yowei sighed and said, it's not easy for you entrepreneurs, it's not easy for everyone, I can understand, but I don't want to see your tactics again in the future. Don't worry, I know who I am. I am my grandson. I also see people queuing at the door of your office every day. There are many people who want to be grandsons. Lu Feng smiled and said, let's go in. Huang Yowei tidied up his clothes and walked in, followed by Lu Feng. On the 3rd floor, in the private room, Zhuang Yuntian was already impatient, and Zhang Fengxia kept checking the time. It was already 7:30, and the waiter came in 3 times to ask if he wanted to order. I'll be here soon, I'll call and ask. Zhang Fengxia stood up and said. Before the door could be opened, the door was pushed open. Lu Feng walked in, looked at Zhuang Yuntian with a smile on his face, and said, Mr. Zhuang, it's been a long wait. High-speed text handwriting returns to the 1989 chapter list. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 258. Zhuang Yuntian couldn't be more unhappy. He stood up at this moment and said with a smile on his face, I just arrived, just in time to take a rest, it's all right. It doesn't matter to me, it's mainly because the leadership is difficult to wait. Lu Feng said towards the door, Secretary Huang, please. Huang Yowei stepped in, glanced at Zhuang Yuntian, and instructed, sit down. You're welcome, this is your first time here. Zhuang Yuntian sat down and looked at Lu Feng with a little more admiration in his heart. Sure enough, he was not an ordinary person. Generally speaking, when a person like Huang Youwei came out, he would definitely have a few people around him. Now it is like a dinner party for ordinary friends. There were only 4 people present. Huang Youwei was in the chair, Zhuang Yuntian was on the left, Lu Feng was on the right, and Zhang Fengxia was by Lu Feng's side. I've been here a few times, but it's all for work. Lu Feng called the waiter in, took the menu and handed it to the two of them. Order whatever you want, I'll be the host, don't be afraid to eat me and make me poor, then, get 2 bottles of Maotai first. Secretary Huang, please order it. Zhuang Yuntian closed the menu and said, I am a guest as I wish. Millet ginseng, 3-headed abalone, cordyceps chicken. Huang Youwei was not polite at all when he ordered food. Why is there nothing? Huang Youwei was slightly dissatisfied. He wanted to disgust Lu Feng, but this was done. This kind of hard food needs to be pre-ordered, which is normal. Sitting there, Lu Feng knew very well what Huang Youwei was thinking. He held back his smile. When the food was ready and the wine was over, Huang Youwei leaned back on his chair and asked, "You investment fund didn't want to come here to develop. We are national in nature, we will invest, and the funds behind us are strong. We are very interested in the current mixed ownership reform of state-owned enterprises. We have participated in the mixed ownership reform of several local large-scale state-owned enterprises, and the effect is still very good." Zhuang Yuntian introduced. It seems that you don't have a high assessment of the private economic market on the mainland. Over the years we have opened up the market. With the gradual opening up, very strong private enterprises have emerged. Entrepreneurs like President Lu are very a lot. Huang Youwei introduced. Yes, we do not deny the efforts of officials like you, but state-owned enterprises are still the main players in the market. Investment mainly depends on the rate of return. If the capital market is not optimistic, it really does not work, Zhuang Yuntian said politely. As far as the development on the mainland is concerned, let me tell you, I pay attention to the evaluations given by your market evaluation agencies. It seems that the evaluation for the mainland is simple industrialized market, right? Huang Youwei asked. Yes, the mainland now has advantages in clothing, shoes and hats, leather processing, etc., high density, low tech, demographic dividends. Zhuang Yuntian looked at Lu Feng and Huang Youwei, and said, but I heard that there are plans for industrial upgrading. Lu Feng looked at Huang Youwei, it was time for him to perform. Where is it? Huang Youwei raised his head like an electric shock, stared at Zhuang Yuntian and asked, where did you hear that? Zhuang Yuntian didn't expect Huang Youwei to have such a big reaction at all. Even Lu Feng didn't expect it. Zhuang Yuntian panicked a little and said, I just read some reports. Nothing, our market is very stable, state-owned enterprises are very healthy, there is no nationalization of private enterprises or anything. Don't listen to the wind and rain. Those people are talking nonsense. Do you really listen? Huang Youwei reprimanded. Zhuang Yuntian suddenly realized that, given Huang Youwei's position, if he said such a thing, wouldn't it prove that there was something wrong? Lu Feng called him hello in his heart. Mr. Wang's acting ability is beyond his imagination. Originally, he was still thinking about saying something vague. The more words you speak, the more convinced the other party is about nationalization. I'm sorry, I said the wrong thing, I will punish myself for a drink. Zhuang Yuntian picked up the glass and drank it. You don't know what you asked. Where is Mr. Huang? The news is naturally better than you and me. If people say no, there is no, understand? Read less messy newspapers all day long. Lu Feng picked up the wine glass and moved towards Huang Youwei said, I will also punish one. Lu Feng raised his glass and drank it all. It was already past 10 o'clock in the evening. Huang Youwei blushed slightly, stood up staggeringly and said, Go to the bathroom, Mr. Lu will go with me. Lu Feng stood up and helped him to the bathroom. Zhuang Yuntian poked his neck and watched the two leave, and asked Zhang Fengxia, Mr. Lu's methods are sky high. Mr. Huang used to be the general manager of a state-owned enterprise in Mr. Lu's hometown. He has helped Mr. Lu, and he is an old friend. Zhang Fengxia smiled and said, Mr. Huang is here, and Mr. Lu is here, do you understand? Understood, understood, Zhuang Yuntian became more confident. In the bathroom, Lu Feng washed his hands and said, Mr. Huang, you should go to the show. I really admire you. Don't talk about him. Even if I sit there and listen to what you have to say, I'll be stunned. Huang Youwei frowned, glanced at Lu Feng and said, Don't come, I'm very unhappy today, you know. I know, I was wrong, I am the grandson, Lu Feng said with a smile. You're a fake grandson, I'm a real grandson. It's getting late, I should have said it all, go back and say a few words before withdrawing, Huang Youwei said and walked out. Mr. Huang, wait a minute, Lu Feng pulled Huang Youwei and said, it's all about this, as the so-called send Buddha to the West, act in a full set, and help. A few minutes later, Lu Feng helped Huang Youwei to the door of the private room, the door was open a crack, and the conversation between the two came in. Huang Youwei, let me tell you, you can't talk nonsense about nationalization, no one can talk about it, it has to work in private, otherwise I won't care about you. Lu Feng, yes, I didn't tell him, people just guessed it, and now there are rumors all over the place. Mr. Huang, don't worry, we are grasshoppers on the same rope, I can cheat you, GFN Electronics is sure you have won. Huang Youwei, SHH. What nonsense are you talking about? Lu Feng, understood. Understood. The villa over Xiangjiang will be written under my name at that time. Of course, you can also put it under the name of your relatives. Zhuang Yuntian, who was sitting in the private room, heard everything in his ears, not to mention him, even Zhang Fengxia was shocked. A few minutes later, the box door was pushed open, and Lu Feng walked in and said, the drink is a bit high, so take it back first. Fengxia, is there a driver downstairs? Yes, I'll call. Lu Feng smiled at Zhuang Yuntian and said, I'm sorry for the poor reception. It's okay, it's okay. Zhang Fengxia called a driver, and Lu Feng followed him downstairs to get into the car, and ordered Mr. Huang to be sent back. There was a hint of moisture in the night wind. Watching the car drive into the dark night, Lu Feng lit a cigarette, stood there a little swaying, stretched out his hand to support the pillar next to him. You also drank a lot, are you all right? Zhang Fengxia came over and asked nervously. It's all right, I have a small idea for a pound of liquor. Lu Feng was smoking a cigarette, the wind was slightly strong, he smoked half of it, and the other half drifted away with the wind, and said, the money has arrived, the raw materials are all together, and the operation will be started soon. I'll go to Shenzhen in a few days and have a meeting with Liukan, but Zhu Lidong will leave it alone for now, I'm afraid the market won't give me time. How could be? Lu Feng sighed. In fact, color TV has entered its golden age since 1991. After this year, the sales of major companies have increased, and the market is obviously growing rapidly. If Zhu Lidong didn't come, he would have no choice but to deal with it. Those who were hard-pressed were not sweet, and those who dug hard might also be unfaithful. Go back upstairs and settle the bill. When Zhuang Yuntian saw Lu Feng's attitude turning 180 degrees again, he reached out to grab Lu Feng's arm, and he was a brother when he opened his mouth and closed his mouth. Brother, I have to show you what I have proved. I have already proved it. I work for others, you understand? It's just that I want to earn some money quietly, and it is really difficult to start the capital. Lu Feng looked at Zhuang Yuntian and said, Brother, don't say it, you all understand that I can see the set of things better than you. Zhuang Yuntian hugged Lu Feng's shoulder and walked downstairs staggeringly, and said, "Just say, how much do you want?" "That's it, 30 million. Zhuang Yuntian shook his head. Hearing this figure, Lu Feng smacked his tongue. It is indeed a fund. It is really rich. Seeing this kind of steady profit without losing money, he can't wait to smash all the money into it. But Lu Feng wouldn't let him do this. Let's not talk about so much money, he can't use it up, too much is really useless, and if you borrow it, you have to pay it back, and once the money reaches a certain level, it's easy to do bad things. It's only 30 million, and the corporate debt is too much. I can't explain it, brother. President Huang must be looking for trouble with me. It's all about it. I'm afraid that he will be implicated, you know, Lu Feng said in a low voice. 30 million is too little. According to the 50% rate of return, it is only 15 million. How can such a good opportunity earn such a small amount? 50% rate of return, is that what? Lu Feng finally understood what profiteering was, and said, add 10 million. I don't want to argue with you. 50 million is a buy-in price. I can report this number to the headquarters. Zhuang Yuntian asked, how long do you think it will take? The end of this year. So fast. What we make is quick money. I heard that the central bank will print money to buy it. It's called money, it's just paper. Yes, yes, Mr. Lu makes a fortune, Mr. Lu makes a fortune. One fortune. Lu Feng took him downstairs and into the car. After watching him leave, he took a deep breath and relaxed. Zhang Fengxia's face was full of disbelief, and she said, how could he actually believe in such an incredible thing? There will always be people in this world who think that the pie will fall from the sky. These people may not have eaten the pie in the sky, but they must have seen the rabbit that died on the stump. Besides, what do investment funds do? Isn't it just drilling all kinds of opportunities? Lu Feng exhaled a cigarette, looked at the night sky and said, remember, when you get what you don't need to pay for anything, you must pay for everything. High-speed text handwriting returns to the 1989 chapter list. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 259. Before leaving, Lu Feng instructed Zhang Fengxia that from now on, he asked the marketing department to produce the latest comprehensive market survey report within a month. At the same time, let Zhang Fengxia register a leather bag company. The legal person should not have any relationship with Jiafeng and GMA. Just find an ID card to register and use it to sign a contract with Zhuang Yuntian. The relationship between this company and Jiafeng Electronics is a cooperative relationship. After explaining some specific details, I drove back to the hotel. The next morning, Zhuang Yuntian made a few calls to overseas, and at the same time told the risk control team about the situation, and made a preliminary judgment on the assets under Lu Feng's name. That it is suitable for investment, and the given risk is about 10%, which is a primary risk investment. At 10 o'clock in the morning, a team of Fulong Fund has flown to Suzhou. In the past few days, Jiao Anfan has been acting as a demon. Some media began to play on-site visits, squatting outside the electronics factory to shoot some things, and even stopped employees to ask. Lu Feng looked at the local Metropolitan Daily, which published such a report in the corporate information column with the title, Be Vigilant. Don't let the unfinished electronics factory unfinished again. The content is nothing more than to say that Lu Feng has a criminal record of scouring wool, and this time it is very likely that he cheated on subsidies again, especially after such a long time. He has not produced a TV set, and interviewed several workshops who did not want to be named. Supervisor, the top management doesn't even have any drawings. The original claim to build the largest scientific research team in Shenzhen and connect with the world's top R/U0026D companies seems to be empty talk. The whole report is less than 1,000 words. The last thing I wrote is that they called the municipal office and wanted to ask Huang Youwei, the general manager, but his secretary kept saying that there was a meeting. Lu Feng rubbed his face with his hands. He could imagine that if Huang Youwei saw this report now, he would definitely be scolding his mother in the office. Once this report was targeted by some important media, the public opinion caused by the second publication would be enough for Huang Youwei to drink pot. Anyway, he's useless. Everything that needs to be done has been done. Let's go around for a while, Lu Feng said and closed the newspaper. What are you walking around? Zhang Xiaoyan was standing in front of the TV and was trying to learn yoga with the people inside. Huang Youwei. Mr. Huang is very nice and has helped you so much. I didn't treat him badly. Lu Feng looked at the time and made an appointment with Zhuang Yuntian at noon, which was the restaurant last night. He stood up and said, we are the same kind of people. It's a game with the enemy, and it's also a game with friends, and a tie is a good friend. After 11 o'clock, Lu Feng arrived at the hotel, and Zhuang Yuntian had already arrived. Today was a lot more formal. He was dressed in suits and leather shoes, and there were 6 or 7 middle-aged men standing beside Mr. Zhuang. Happy cooperation, happy cooperation. Zhuang Yuntian held Lu Feng's hand and said, take a photo. A group of people stood there and took a photo. There were 2 tables set up today. There was no wine on the dinner table, but drinks and tea. It could be seen that what they drank last night had not been digested. This meal was very lively. After eating, I took out the contract and looked at it. After the specific terms were no problem, I signed it. After seeing off Zhuang Yuntian and his group, on the way back, Lu Feng sat in the back row and said, have you read today's Metropolitan Daily? I saw an article about us. Let the people in the business department handle it, and say that our products will be launched soon. After returning, prepare a meeting and call the entire management. I will fly to Shenzhen tomorrow, and you will call Liukan. Lu Feng leaned on his seat. He closed his eyes and said, I'll come back with the blueprint, and I'll start production. At the same time, you're in charge of the market. There's no news about that person, Zhang Fengxia asked in surprise. Where is it so easy? He just wants to go, can't he just lift his legs and go? In the capital, Lenovo headquarters, in the general manager's office, Zhu Lidong grabbed his head with his hands, and his whole soul was restless. In front of him was a resignation letter with a few words on it, think again. A girl in business attire knocked on the door, pushed open the door and said, Mr. Zhu, the conference room is ready. Zhu Lidong raised his head and took a deep breath and said, if it doesn't work, let them disband. The assistant was a little surprised, but this situation is normal these days, not to mention Mr. Zhu, many people have heard some rumors, and everyone is panicking. Zhu Lidong leaned on the chair and rubbed his temples with his hands. His mind was no longer here. He stood up and picked up the resignation letter and walked out. After ringing in the chairman's office, he walked in and put the resignation letter on the desk again. Mr. Lu, we have different ideas. Let's go our separate ways. I have done a little thing at Lenovo in the past few years. Let's get together and break up, Zhu Lidong said solemnly. Who did you listen to? Are you obsessed? Mr. Lu took off his glasses and rubbed his face. Nationalization is impossible. Now that the group has been completed and the brand has just established, you want to leave. I don't have the heart to work anymore. I feel like I'm a part-time worker, and I'll always be a part-time worker. Zhu Lidong laughed at himself. Someone gave you equity. Mr. Lu looked at Zhu Lidong and said, your work ability is very good, but there are many liars in this society. Don't take others' words lightly. You should know what's going on in our company. I'm not qualified to give it to you. Equity, I am also a minority shareholder. I know, so I said it's good to get together and then to leave. Mr. Liu realized that what he said was useless. He was determined to leave now. He took the resignation letter and put it in the drawer. He waved his hand and said, "Let's go, let's go." Interrupt him. After 1 o'clock in the afternoon, when Lu Feng returned to the factory area, he saw more than a dozen trucks lining up to enter the warehouse area. Zhang Fengxia glanced at it and said, "The second batch of goods is back, when will the money be credited to his account?" "A batch of materials will be requested next month." "Next month," Lu Feng said dissatisfiedly. "How long is the billing cycle?" 3 months. "Where is there such a 3-month cycle? Tell the people in the business department, it will take me a long time, and the checkout cycle will become half a year. Funds are not sufficient, and cash flow is the foundation," Lu Feng said solemnly. The car was parked under the office building, and Zhang Fengxia said, "Would you like to go to your office to take a look? The decoration is not bad." "Let's see, I have to prepare too." Zhang Fengxia called a few people and gave a few orders, and then took Lu Feng upstairs. The office is very spacious, covering more than 100 square meters, with a huge solid wood desk, leather boss chair, and behind it is a huge calligraphy, writing author, a vast world, great achievements, 8 characters. The middle is divided into 2 halves. The front is the living room. The TV, sofa, and coffee table are all available. The decoration is very luxurious. Lu Feng looked around and said, "Yes, it's better than Huang Youwei's office. He called me to show it off." There is also a rest area. Zhang Fengxia walked towards the combination cabinet behind her. When she opened the cabinet, there was actually a secret door. After passing through, there was a bedroom with a bed and wardrobe. This house was originally designed like this. It was the office of the former vice president. It was arranged by someone else to do things for others. I checked the information and found that this person only packs 7 mistresses. It's normal to prepare such a place, just in time. It's a place for you to rest. Zhang Fengxia slowly moved to Lu Feng's side, raised her eyelids and glanced at him, and said with a bit of flirtation, "How many are you going to take care of?" Lu Feng felt that something was wrong. She was very close, her breath was very hot on Lu Feng's face. What emotion was bred in those eyes, and it seemed that something was burning, which changed the atmosphere of the whole room. It's time for a meeting." Lu Feng was a little afraid to look at her. "It's early, it's only 1:30, this place is pretty good, you can just rest when you're tired." Zhang Fengxia glanced at the bed and said, "Would you like to lie down and try it? It's quite expensive to get a new mattress. Let's go outside." "What are you hiding from?" Zhang Fengxia reached out and grabbed his arm and pulled it. Lu Feng fell unsteadily on the bed. She said, "I eat people. It's just this lonely man and a woman, it's not suitable." "What's wrong?" "I insulted you. I said it as if you were so good. I'll post you." Zhang Fengxia sat down beside the bed with a long sigh and said, "I'm here on the 2nd day of the new year, and I sleep 6 days a day for the past few days. Hours, this is the first time I am so tired." Lu Feng knew that such a big company was indeed a bit of a hassle for her, so he reached out and patted her shoulder to comfort him. "If you pay, you will gain, it's all experience for you, and besides, you're doing a good job." Zhang Fengxia suddenly turned her head and stared at him. "Then do you want to reward me?" Lu Feng thought about it seriously and said, "I should be busy with the incentive equity recently." "I also thought about it recently. I will dilute the equity to about 40 million shares, and I will reward you." "Okay," Zhang Fengxia said and suddenly rushed towards Lu Feng, pressing him down. Lu Feng had already noticed something was wrong. He reached out and grabbed her shoulder and said, "What are you doing?" "Reward? It's not that I won't give it to you, it's too late, there's only half an hour left." Then I'll call and tell them to postpone the meeting for another half an hour. It's not too late for an hour. You're going to die if you don't brag. Sister Xiao Yan told me. Zhang Fengxia smiled and said, but I've kept some secrets for you, such as you go to some banquets and flirt with some women, and that's so compassionate. Lu Feng never thought that Zhang Fengxia and Zhang Xiao Yan had such a good relationship. Even after talking about these things, his face slowly darkened, and he put his arms around her waist, picked her up and put her aside. You're playing with you, why did you pull your face down? Zhang Fengxia kicked him angrily and shouted, I'll be your subordinate, so I have to stand in front of you like a grandson all day long. I've been so tired for so long. You call me and I'll break my leg. Now it's the two of us, playing with you. Are you angry with me? Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 260. Lu Feng could feel that Zhang Fengxia's ability to withstand pressure was not strong. After walking out of the bedroom a few minutes later, she was a little angry. Maybe she never thought that Lu Feng would be so out of touch with her. It made her feel quite uncomfortable, so she sorted out the folders on the table and said, I'll see how the conference room is prepared. Take a break and I'll send someone to call you later. Not allowing Lu Feng to say more, Zhang Fengxia turned her head and left. Lu Feng sighed, sat down and thought to herself, after all, she was too young or easily emotional. 10 minutes later, a little girl knocked on the door. Her face was full of nervousness. She stuck her head in and said, Chairman, the conference room is ready. President Zhang asked me to call you. In the future, open the door, walk in, don't open a crack to probe, you will act like a thief. Lu Feng walked over and opened the door. Today's meeting was a bit sudden for many people, especially in the face of the chairman, who had heard a lot of Lu Feng's deeds, but had not yet had any specific exchanges. Hundreds of people were present, and they were the core management of GFN Electronic Technology at present, and the voices were a little noisy. Zhang Fengxia was waiting not far away, holding a document in her hand, which contained a list of major management teams, as well as some basic conditions of the current factory. You don't need to read it, it's up to you to decide these things. Lu Feng glanced at it and handed it to Zhang Fengxia. Don't you have a speech? Zhang Fengxia realized that Lu Feng was empty-handed. No, I've been thinking about everything from internal management to the market for more than half a year. I've been thinking about everything in my head. I'm thinking about everything, Lu Feng said and walked towards the front. Zhang Fengxia stayed on the spot. In the past 2 or 3 months, she has been busy with her work. For such a large factory, she said that the things that need to be managed are huge and cumbersome. For the first time, she realized the huge gap between textbooks and reality. However, this person said that he had already figured it out in his mind. There were a few little girls in business attire standing at the door. When they saw Lu Feng approaching, one of them smiled and said, Chairman and President, please. Passing through a corridor is a huge conference room with a red carpet at the door, and you can see the scene inside through the door. Be quiet, Mr. Lu is here, come. Everyone stood up and applauded. Before Lu Feng could reach the door, the applause inside was already thunderous. Going into the rows of seats below, directly opposite is a small stage, fluttering on the red carpet, and above it is a speech platform with a bunch of flowers and a few microphones. Raising his hand, Lu Feng took the topic off the stand and said, let's all sit down, let's all sit down, it's the first time we meet, it's very solemn, I don't like to be arrogant, and I don't care about applauding in the future. Now, Mr. Zhang, hurry up and take your seat, it's already 2 o'clock, this will be a bit long, everyone bring pens and notebooks. There were a few people who didn't bring them, and they were hunched over the world. Lu Feng beckoned to a waiter, brought up a stool and sat down. It is estimated that this meeting will be held until 6 or 7 o'clock in the evening, and it will fly to Shenzhen tomorrow. It's all right, Mr. Zhang has been dealing with you for so long, and many people are seeing me for the first time. Today I hold this meeting, just for one thing: GFN electronic technology will be officially put into production. I want to say internal management issues. I have read the rules and regulations, the overall is good, but there is still a shortcoming in terms of personnel flow. For all personnel, the personnel department conducts identity registration. Anyone who fights will be fired. There must be security guards in and out of the workshop, because someone will definitely bring something out of the assembly line. Not to mention anything else, the fuse of the TV is copper wire. Someone must steal this. If you catch it, you will be fired. Once it starts running requires high standards, because I know that if I ask you for 100, you only do 50, and if I ask for 50, then nothing will be done. For the personnel department and the finance department to ensure that people do things according to the rules, the most important thing is finance, and the accounts must be clear. We are exempt from tax for 3 years, but it is a tax return system. The Municipal Finance Bureau will check it at any time. If you want to go to the prison and have a look at the scenery, you can go there. I will tell you in advance that I have someone in the city, say hello and sentence them to 2 or 3 years more, like a game. The system must be perfected. A person is registered in the personnel department, and then which department takes the person away, and then to the performance assessment. If the assessment fails to meet the standards, and then resigns from the personnel department, it is necessary to establish who signs and is responsible, and don't use ID cards to fool ghosts. Eat empty pay, increase assessment standards, raise salary standards, and at the same time the personnel department must reduce entropy. What is entropy reduction? It means loss or elimination. I believe that there is one outstanding person among 100 people, so we have to eliminate 99 people in order to get an excellent manager. After the official production, we will make performance every month. Attainment rate: the last 10% will be laid off every 3 months. Although the people below have heard about some things, their faces changed when they heard such a high elimination rate. Internal management is not about hello, I am good, everyone, if you are good, I am not good. For the management of employees on the bottom line, it must be managed from many aspects such as safety, efficiency, theft, loss, etc., and you must think about the front when you do things. For the management, to achieve efficient execution, and at the same time to be flexible to meet the standards. Efficient internal management is for export, and I am personally responsible for the market. Sales channels have always been a big problem, and transportation in distant places is even more problematic. If you want to open up such a complex sales channel, it will not be 5 years, or even longer. It's impossible, so in order to facilitate transportation, we can get through the national sales network faster and adopt the method of assembly to transport. We only produce the core of TV sets, and the remaining screens, casings, wires, and speakers are customized from the nearest manufacturer. The advantage is that it is convenient for transportation and will not cause excessive damage. The disadvantage is that there are many cooperative manufacturers, and the quality is not guaranteed. In order to ensure the quality must be approved by the main factory before it can be used. An agent in each province can make an assessment map of the surrounding population, consumption power, age structure of the population, and the number of TV sets owned by every 100 people. The assembly is very simple. Yes, it can be efficiently distributed to surrounding counties, towns, and villages. In order to control the price of terminal sales, the agent has no pricing power. At the same time, after passing the data evaluation, the dealer will be assigned a task. After the task is completed, the main factory will give rebates. For those with high sales, they can give 100,000, 300,000, or even a millions of rebates, but inefficient agents must be eliminated. Also, after the product leaves the factory, it must be strictly monitored. There must be a receipt for delivery, and where to send it. The warehouse clerk over there must have a separate receipt. This is very important. What happened at GMA Food? At the end of the month. Chaku, there is a lack of 700,000 goods for no reason, so I called the police, checked for a long time. The driver who delivered the goods to the agent is a relative of the agent, and also knows someone in finance, tore up the list, and robbery. So make good use of faxes, don't let the driver pull a truck of goods out. The total number of people guarding the truck is just a few hundred a month, and a truck with hundreds of thousands of dollars, let's do it for one ticket, even people. Cars and goods are all gone, maintain efficient communication, and let everyone in the management mechanism connect seamlessly. There is also the advertising part, go deep into the countryside, hire some people, and paint the walls of towns and villages. The people are very happy, and the advertisements are painted, and there is no rain that cannot be washed away in 3 or 5 years. At the same time, TV advertisements must be prepared. Newspaper advertisement, I had a phone call with President Zhang at the beginning of the year, and she asked me, is our brand going to be called Jiafeng? I refused. Advertising marketing is an art, and the brand name itself is an advertisement. First of all, our brand positioning is the low-end market, and the low-end market must have a particularly high-level name. At that time, the advertising department was just established, and there were not many people. Hand me a few names, what a Happy Meeting TV, what a Hexy TV, what a Beautiful TV, all rely on the wedding, one by one. Think about it, you want this kind of TV when you get married, it's very cheap when you hear it, you have to understand the minds of those who buy cheap goods, you spend 2,000 or 3,000 yuan to buy a TV set to marry a wife, and her family is gone. I saw it and asked you, what brand is it? You said it was called Happy Encounter, and it was a cheap domestic product when people heard it. The scene burst into laughter. There is no light on the face, what we have to do is to let them spend 2,000 or 3,000 yuan to buy a cheap, practical, big one, and it will make others think it is expensive. The simplest example, 2 girls twins, one is Arya and the other is Anzulabe, which one are you looking for? It must be Western style. According to the current popular saying, it is now the sheep farting in the sheepfold. This era is really Western style. There was another burst of laughter. I hope the advertising department will remember one thing when doing marketing. When a product is born, it still doesn't know why it is serving a group. Then it is the fault of marketing. Without positioning, there is no need to exist. Marketing is not only its advertising, branding, and positioning a product, what it will bring to people, and if you don't know what it will bring to people, then I advise you to leave this industry. I've been thinking about this brand for a long time, and I've settled on it recently. It's called Weputa. In advertising, I want to tell the folks that it's Panda technology, and it also comes from Germany. For a TV factory with 50 years of history, of course, it can't be said in official publicity, but it can be done in terms of terminal sales. High-speed text handwriting returns to the 1989 chapter list.